Hi there, in this video we'll be working on a Hotpoint EW74 cooker and specifically on the removal and refitting of the fan oven element. These elements are generally very similar in appearance and how they fit across the wide range of cookers, so in this respect the video could be related to any number of other makes and models. It is possible to replace these elements from the front without disturbing the cooker, so if done properly this should be an easy repair. The first thing to do is to disconnect it. Because of the very high ampage used by cookers, it's best if you switch the appliance off from the mains or remove the fuse in the main box. At very least, switch the unit off from the wall socket and remove that fuse. Under no circumstances work on a cooker while it's still connected to the mains power supply. Removing the hob top is the next course of action, and this one is held on by 2 screws under the fascia panel and 2 at the back. To get the screws under the fascia panel you'll need to remove the control knobs and the clock buttons. These knobs come off easily if you leave them off. So they go back on the correct control, place them on a piece of wood or something in the order they were removed. This way you can put them to one side until needed for refitting. The buttons are all the same, so there's no need to segregate them. Just pull them off and put them in a container and keep them safe. Under the fascia are 2 screws that hold it on. When these have been removed, slide it to the left and it will unhook from a couple of brackets on the cabinet. Be careful how you remove the fascia because there are 2 neons attached, and if you're too heavy handed you could break either or both of them. Having said that, they're not the easiest things in the world to remove, but they do need to come off or you'll be left with the fascia panel hanging suspended by these neon wires. With the fascia panel off you can see the fixing brackets which it hooked into, and the hob fixing screws above them. These screws are the only things holding the front of the hob on, but as you can see access to them is quite long-winded. Remove the screws and go to the back of the cooker. There's a number of screws here, but only the bottom 2 hold the hob on. The others hold 2 brackets which fit across the hot plates, so don't undo these. Lift the hob up very carefully because on this model there's at least one wire which is, to my way of thinking, much too short, and if you just lift the hob you'll bend the terminal it connects to, and if not rectified before refitting it will short out one of the elements. The terminal blocks come apart quite easily if you squeeze the levers either side and prise them apart with a screwdriver. Although they look the same, they are in fact opposites and can't be reconnected the wrong way, so there's no need to label them. These control switches are sometimes referred to as regulators, but there is a great difference between them, even though they both do the same job. It's usually possible to see if there's a fault with these controls because the contacts are not encased like they are on regulators. It's always a good idea to take a photo or make a diagram of the switch before you start removing or rearranging any wiring connections. And before replacing the switch, just take a moment to compare the new one with the one you're taking off. There are a few that look the same but have one or more connections missing and are designed to attach a thermostat to. Just small differences, but enough to alter their effectiveness on your cooker. And if you have already started swapping wires over, you may be in a spot of trouble, which is another good reason for taking a photo, just in case you need to replace them to the original switch. I prefer to screw the switch in place before connecting the wires, but you may want to connect them first and then fit the switch. Either way, take your time, don't be hurried into racing through the procedure, because it's easy to put a wire on the wrong terminal, which could possibly be very dangerous, not to mention costly. Now's a good time to put the spacer back on the shaft, or you could forget it and leave it off. As I said earlier, these terminal blocks can't be fitted wrongly, because there's a male and a female connector on the hob and the same on the cooker. Therefore the male on the hob fits the female on the cooker and vice versa. Even the pin connections are shaped so they'll only fit in one position. At the beginning of this video I mentioned that you need to watch out for the hob hot LEDs and how one of the wires pulls on a terminal. Be aware of this and check it before replacing the top, or you could find it blowing a fuse and wonder why. Make sure the hob's sitting square on the cooker before you start replacing the front screws. Fortunately, the neons go back much easier than they came out, but be sure to check the wire has gone inside the cabinet or the fascia panel won't fit properly. Hook the top of the panel onto the retaining brackets and slide it to the right. If the fascia is on properly, the holes in it should line up with the holes in the cabinet, so fit the screws and tighten them. Now bring over all the control knobs you previously put on a piece of wood, and they'll all be in the right order for refitting. The buttons just push on, and they're all the same anyway, so it doesn't really matter which order they go back on in. To finish up, just replace the 2 screws at the back of the hob and the cooker's ready to test. Just as a precaution, it may be wise before you reconnect it to the mains just to do a continuity test. Switch all the elements on, including the ovens, and put one of the meter probes on the earth terminal and the other on the positive. If all's well, you shouldn't get a reading. Now try it between the negative and earth. Once again, there should be no reading. If there is, turn all the elements off and try them one at a time to isolate which one is faulty. Only when they check out OK, reconnect the cooker. On behalf of Selfix UK, we'd like to thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting. Goodbye.